Here we're going to look at completing cumulative frequency tables, which is this blank table down here, and then drawing the graph. Once we've completed that table, we can then draw what we call a cumulative frequency graph. The good thing about these questions is they're always the same. They always follow exactly the same method, and as long as you're careful, you should pick up your marks on this. So the first thing to understand is what the cumulative frequency table represents. So the cumulative frequency, I always think of this as kind of like an accumulation. It's kind of got the same word in it. The cumulative frequency has got the accumulation of things. So we're going to add these numbers, add the frequencies together from the first table, one by one, and gradually build up a value that will go into the second table. Okay, if you look at the range of values 0 to 5, we've got 0 to 5 here. So we're going to start that 41. It's just going to copy down and be the first number. That's the same, 0 to 5. Okay, but in our cumulative frequency table, the second interval is 0 to 10. And if we look back at this table, this is 0 to 5, and this is 5 to 10. So 0 to 10 is going to include both of these. So what this has in effect is that we add the 26 on to the 41 to give us 67. And then the next row of our cumulative frequency table is 0 to 15. Well, 0 to 15 includes the first 3 rows. So it's all of these 3 added together. So that in effect means we're going to add the extra 20 on to the next one, which gives us 87. So in essence, all we're doing to complete the cumulative frequency table is the frequencies. We're just going to add them up one by one. So we're going to add on 26. Then we're going to add on 20. And every time we get a new value, we enter it in the table below. That's how it works. So the next one, 0 to 20, we're going to add this 10 on in our table, gives us 97. And then we're going to add the 3 on in our table, that gives us 100. And the good thing about this is that we're told the complete number of things in the question. There are 100 aeroplanes, so my final frequency should always equal that total at the start of the question. So to complete the table, it's only 1 mark, but it's 1 mark we should always get. We start with the first frequency, and then we just add on 26, that's the next number. And then we add on 20, next number. Add on 10, add on 3, and then just double check it ties in with that first number. Remember, pause the video at any stage if you want to kind of catch up or have a think about things. Once we've got our cumulative frequency table, we are now ready to draw our cumulative frequency graph, which is what it asks you to do in this next part of the question. Almost always follows once you've done the table. To draw the graph, we need to know what we're going to plot and where we're going to plot it. So the first thing to remember is that on the x-axis, the age in t years, this corresponds to this age in t years. These are the ages, aren't they? 0 to 5, 0 to 10, etc. So we're always going to plot upper class limit on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we're going to plot our cumulative frequency value. Okay, so what that means is I'm always plotting the upper class limit. This is called what we call the class interval. 0 to 5 is an interval of 0 to 5. And the upper class limit is just the top number. So by plotting the upper class limit, we're going to plot that 5 against the cumulative frequency, which is 41. So we're going to plot 5 against 41. And just be careful with your scales here. So 5 against 41. And it'll be easier in your exam when it's all printed out for you. 5, 41 is going to be here. Be careful with your scales. Here it's 10 squares is 20 units. So 1 square will be 2. So 41 will just be halfway up that very, very first little square. And then we go back to the table. We plot the upper class limit, 10, against the cumulative frequency. So we plot 10, 67. So 10, 62, 4, 6, 67. This is quite tricky on the computer. So that should be halfway between 2 squares. We go back to this, upper class limit, 15 against 87, 15, 82, 4, 6, 87. And then upper class limit 20 against 97, 20 along 97 up, so 92, 4, 6, lots of 7s at the end, 97. And then finally 25 goes next to or against 100. So 25, 100 is right at the top here. So that's how we plot our points. 1 mark for plotting your points. And then we connect these. This is like dot to dot. And you should always use a ruler. You can get away without using a ruler. You can get away with it, but it's a lot more difficult to get right. You can try and do a smooth curve, but it's difficult. Ruler will get you 100% of the marks. So it's dot to dot with a ruler, and you also connect the origin. So you connect from 0. So I then get my ruler out and straight line between all the points. Like this. Okay, and obviously mine's a little bit dodgy because I've not got a ruler, but that's how it would work. Complete your cumulative frequency table by adding up the frequencies one by one, and then we plot the upper class limit, so the top number, against the cumulative frequency. Be careful with the scales, like on this axis, for example. And then we join them with a ruler dot to dot, including connecting 0. So that's question 1. Question 2. So really similar setup. We've got this table underneath, and then we've got the graph to plot afterwards. So information about the speeds of 200 cars passing a speed checkpoint shown below. Complete the cumulative frequency table. So again, 30 to 40 is we're going to start with this number here, 20, and we can fill that in our table. And then we're just adding on these numbers one by one to get our new entries in this table. So here we're then going to add our 76 on, which gives us 96. Then add 68 to 96, which gives us 164. Then add the 28 to 164, so 192. And then finally we add the 8 on, which gives us 200. And again, a quick check, there are 200 things in the question, 200 cars. So our total at the end of our cumulative, because we're accumulating, we're building up, should be exactly the same as that. And then to plot our graph, we transfer this information onto here. We plot the upper class limit, which are these values, against the cumulative frequency. So we're going to plot the 40 against 20. So 40, 20. So 40, 20. And again, be careful with your scales. 50 against 96. 50. 96. 60 against 164. So 60, 164. 70 against 192, sorry. 70, 192. And then 80, 200. 80, 200. So there's my points plotted. 1 mark for that, getting them in the correct place. Be careful with your scales. And then we join them dot to dot with a ruler. So I get my ruler out. Dot to dot. And yours should be neater because you'll be using a ruler and a pencil. And I'd always recommend pencil for these. So if you get something wrong, you can rub it out. There you go, 3 marks. So it should be straightforward, you've just got to be careful, but it will always be the same. And one more question, the last one is number 3. Remember, just pause whenever you need to, just to catch up or to complete it. I'd probably pause now, have a go at this question by yourself, and then once you've done it, come back and check that you've done it the same way and you're thinking about it in the same way as I've explained. So complete the table to start with, always the same. So we're going to take the first value for 10 to 20, that just goes into the table. And then we're adding up the frequencies one by one and entering each time into our new table. So 10 to 30, we add on the 38 to the 8, so that's 46. Then we add on the 28 74, then we add on the 4, 78, and then we add on the 2, 80, and that's our final total. So we should just check that this total matches the total if they give it to us in the question, which they have done. And then I plot my graph, my cumulative frequency graph. I plot the upper class limit, so these values, I plot them one by one against these values. So 20 against 8, 30 against 46, 30, 46, 40, 74, so 40 and then go up 74, 50 against 78, so 50, 78, and finally 60 against 80, so 60 along and 80 up, which is right in the top corner. And I know I'm kind of drawing my crosses, they're not particularly neat, but it should be a nice, neat, sharp pencil, little cross, and it should be very accurate. And then dot to dot, straight lines from 0. That's quite curved. So it should be straight. Draw a curve if you want, but it is much more difficult. So straight lines with a ruler is the best way of doing this. Again, 3 more marks, nice and easy if I know what I'm doing and I follow the rules. And if I'm not sure, I can always use a calculator to add up. And there's 3 marks here. They then tend to ask you follow-up questions, which we're going to look at in the next video on this. So all this wants to be right, so that when they ask the follow-up questions, which are also not too difficult, marks which we should definitely be picking up, it's easy to pick them up because we've got all this first bit right. This initial bit has to be right to get the next bit right. So important to pick up your marks here, and also it will be important for the questions that come next, which will be in the next video.